Thank you for joining me. This is Katie Whitledge with Beyond the Technique podcast. We're together. It's Thursday. It's you and we're talking about boundaries, how to protect your time, energy, and culture. Boundaries. This is so important in our industry. We're wired to serve, to please others, and say yes. Are you a yes person? I know I am. But without boundaries, burnout becomes normal. Then so does resentment. Team culture starts to erode, and clients begin to control your business. Boundaries are not about controlling others, it's about taking responsibility for yourself. So you don't get what you want, you get what you are willing to tolerate. How many of you have had difficult relationships with a loved one? Did you need to set boundaries with that person at some point? Yet, in our salon culture or spa environment, we may struggle because it's easier to be a little more you with the people you know aren't going to leave you or um all of a sudden not love you anymore. So this can be a very challenging kind of concept to put in place for real. Like it's one thing to talk about it, it's another thing to do it. And for many owners, you are creating or helping create boundaries between the dynamic of clients and your team, and maybe even yourself and the team. But how about your team and you? Are you being mindful of having boundaries to protect them, but you aren't protecting yourself? Maybe, I don't know. So we're going to get into it. What boundaries, what are they? What are boundaries? So I really love, there's a psychologist. I've read his book, Boundaries. His name is Dr. Henry Cloud. And based on what I've learned from him, boundaries are what you are responsible for and what someone else is responsible for. So, what is your responsibility in this relationship? What is the other person's responsibility? So, in a salon or spa setting, boundaries include your time, energy, standards, and money. So, when it comes to time, how are you creating boundaries for clients, whether they're late or they no show or um, those types of boundary, even their behavior when they are in? And I think about, oh, can I just tell you the gym life? I love people. I go to a gym where I'm not part of like a group fitness class, and yet I've made friends with people that I tend to see. Well, one day I'm walking on the treadmill because in Wisconsin, you can't get outside to walk all the time. So it's winter. I'm walking on the treadmill, and there is a gentleman a few treadmills down on the phone. And I look over because I have my earbuds in and I'm trying to enjoy. I don't know if it was a podcast or what I was listening to, but I'd get interrupted and hear him. And in the kind of back in the day when I wasn't as confident or sure of myself, I probably would have just kept my mouth shut and internally been annoyed by this guy. But I finally looked at him. This is going to be loud. And I was like, hey! And I go, what the fuck? And I point to the ears, like, or on the phone, like, what are you thinking? And he got off the treadmill and walked away on his phone call. He didn't come back. And the more bold I'm willing to be to stand up and speak up for what I believe is just common sense and common courtesy, I'm finding like a little payoff in it. And that could turn into a bad thing because I don't want to get overly confident or cocky about it or overly like bold and become the big B word to others. I just don't want to get disrespectful, but I am the parent in the neighborhood that if the kids aren't acting right, I will let them know. And I've never once had a parent come up and be upset with me for having to correct the group or if their kid is being inappropriate, So I have you ever had to be in that situation? I promise you, I'm not a Karen, because I'm very caring about other people. But there are also like moments where I'm like, this is totally unacceptable. um, I don't know why I think that's so funny, but have you ever been in that situation where you've really had to set boundaries because deep down this isn't right, this can't continue? So in your salon setting, you have your time, and that can also be the standards you have on upholding the time of running. Like if your stylists are running behind, that's not a healthy boundary for the client that is sitting and waiting for them. So your time is a kind of category that you need to set boundaries around, whether that's for your team's expectations, their responsibility in timing, your clients, the whole picture. Your energy is so important. If you don't have boundaries around aspects that will consume your energy, this could be like how you handle team drama. I don't know one company, one organization in any industry that doesn't have team drama at some point once in a while. So, how do you create boundaries, really positive, healthy boundaries around expecting that that's going to happen? And even how you have to protect your energy from negativity. And what is my responsibility? What's yours? And money. How are we going to handle if we do refunds? How we go about refunding, discounting, our policies, all of that. So, healthy boundaries look like having clear expectations communicated up front. So, how are they communicated up front with your clients? That's before they even come in for the first time. That's going to be your website and any pre visit communications. Onboarding new talent before they start, when they start, during, middle, and I mean, everything. Consistency in that communication. And speaking of consistency, having consistent accountability. So it's one thing to say, hey, here we want to communicate with each other this way. For example, you as an owner may not want people to get a hold of you on the weekends, let's say. Let's say that's one of your boundaries. And by the way, I don't know any owner who would have that boundary. If you do, you're incredible. And I need to take notes because I'm like, get a hold of me anytime. I'm here for you. Um, we probably need to put that in place. But let's say you are an owner or a leader, a salon manager who is like, when I'm not here, I'm not accessible. Now, are you upholding that on the flip side? As the salon leader, are you respecting that when someone isn't in, that they aren't on, and therefore you have to wait till they're in before you communicate with them? Or are you an owner or leader who crosses that boundary and gets a hold of people on oddball hours of the day or night? Or now, if you have it like that, that may not be a thing. I know there are certain team members that are up early and I can be like, hey, I happen to be driving right now, you want to chat, and they're cool with it. If they're not, they let me know. And I'm like, no problem. Like, you just want to have that open communication. But if you have a hard line, respect it for others as well. So consistent accountability to the boundaries that you set are so important. And then having a calm, confident response. So if boundaries are crossed or you feel, whether it's with clients and providers on your team, whether it's between team members with one another, leaders and team members, whatever that looks like, always staying calm and reacting logically, not allowing yourself to get overly emotional, because then you tap into the part of the brain that struggles with logic. When you're too emotional, you cannot be logical. So keeping emotions under control is so important. By the way, for owners listening, when you are hiring or building somebody up to become a leader, this is one of the main things that you have to look for in a leader. Are they in control of their emotions? Do they have strong emotional intelligence? If this is an area of struggle, they may not be in the right position. They might be the right person, but in the wrong position. They cannot be in a leadership position if they cannot control their emotions. So, unhealthy boundaries might look like over explaining or apologizing for policies. Well, think about that in a personal relationship. If you're like, oh, sorry, I should, and it's like, no, you shouldn't be sorry for having this clear, very healthy boundary in place. And there might be consequences to that. So, what's an example? Well, let's just say this. If I pay, and nowadays you pay for, let's say, going to the movies, you pay for your seat in advance. You pick your recliner seat, you're going to go and you go to the movies. If I'm 30 minutes late for that movie and it's already started, I don't get to go and be like, can we start over? I didn't get to see the very beginning. Nobody would even think to do that. And the same is true for dentist appointment. Nobody's late for their dentist appointment. It's like, so we have to uphold expectations of like crazy things happen. Clients might be late. It might be an anomaly, but this cannot be a consistent thing. And we can't promise XYZ, but yet you still have to pay for the time that you had reserved with us because it's like buying your plane ticket. It's like buying your hotel room. It's like going to the movie. Are you with me? So not over apologizing for when you have a policy in place, that's a boundary, it's clear, and really being confident to uphold that. Um, Unhealthy boundaries is actually avoiding hard conversations. When you do have to have a hard conversation with a team member, or you have to encourage team members to have hard conversations with one another, avoiding that is unhealthy and will never lead to the kind of culture that you deserve. And that is what everybody deserves in a professional setting. Rescuing people from consequences. Man, I probably am guilty of this. I see it in my kids. There are plenty of times they have consequences for unacceptable behavior. And there are times where if it's just, between me and them, I'm like, oh, okay. Or I'll be like, you're grounded. And then later that night, I'll feel bad and then end up taking them to the movies and buying them whatever treats they want. I mean, really, like, what are we doing? So, what does that look like in your salon if you're rescuing people from consequences? And owners, I know you're in a sticky situation because sometimes there's this conflict between leadership, let's say, and a team member, and you work probably closer with the leader than the team member that the conflict is with. So it's like touchy where you have to have really unbiased towards the situation and you have to help them resolve their conflict. But if somebody has habitually maybe broken a policy, let's talk about appearance. Let's say you have an appearance standard, not a dress code, and somebody just consistently shows up looking nasty, just like unkept, unclean, not trying. And you're like, really, we've had this conversation and it seems like you do good for a few weeks. And then all of a sudden we have to have this conversation again. And you are charging $90 for a haircut. Like, this is not okay. You might find yourself being like, you know what? I've had the talk. Is this the hill I'm, worth dying on? Do I just let it go? This is who they are. Or are you sending the wrong message to the entire collective that you kind of gave up on it and deep down they know that if they have the talk with you, it's one thing, but there aren't actual consequences to not upholding your standards, like long term. That becomes a slippery slope. Also saying yes when you're really feeling like resentment inside. Like, this is not healthy. And man, I can just say this, like, nobody may ever know that you have that resentment in your heart, but it's going to affect you, and probably it could manifest itself as physical ailments. You can literally get sick, or, being somebody who upholds their word, and also as leaders, making sure everybody else upholds this is what boundaries is. It's knowing what your responsibility is and others' responsibility. But you have to be also in a leadership position, the one to help make sure it's upheld, that everybody stays accountable. And that resentment, eventually, it's going to come to light. And maybe with something so ridiculous where you're like, what was I thinking? But it builds, it builds. And then you have the straw that breaks the camel's back. You don't want to get to that point. So really talking things through with every little scenario reasonably that you have a boundary around. So here are the core principles of great boundaries. Know what's yours and what's not. You are responsible to people, but not for people. Let me say that again. You are responsible to people, but you're not responsible for people. So in the salon, you're responsible for leadership, systems, culture. You can't control, though, other people, but you can hold them accountable to your systems, your culture, your standards. You're not responsible for their attitude. If clients have unrealistic expectations, that is not your responsibility, and you cannot control that. Or somebody's lack of discipline. You are not responsible for that. They are responsible. And at some point, you have to have the tough conversations, or make tough decisions about that. So really stop rescuing and start requiring people to take radical ownership or responsibility, accountability for themselves. And be the example. Always be the example of what that looks like. Number 2, define expectations before problems happen. Well, here's the thing with creatives and even salons. I'll tell you what, it's not an easy business model. And there's so many nuances. Think about even restaurants have, let's say, a menu of food. It's a lot to remember, but eventually kind of get it down. With our menus at our salon and spas, it's a lot to remember, and it's always changing. You get new products. This takes a little longer. Now there's a new trend. Now we're going to switch it up. This person takes 45 minutes. This person takes an hour and 15 minutes. It's a lot, you guys. And so before a problem comes up, you have to set up clear expectations, but you have to remind people over and over and over and over again. It's got to be written somewhere. It's got to be seen somewhere digitally. There has to be that consistency, because people are going to forget. There's a lot going on, and it's always changing. If you are struggling, it might be that your policies are too vague. You need to be clearly defining your policies, both for clients and team members, and additionally, your leadership. There should never be assumed standards. Those standards that you have for your business should be, again, clearly defined, and everybody's on the same page and in agreement. So, key lesson here. People don't respect what isn't clearly defined. How can they? They don't know. But they will respect when it's clearly defined and it's consistently communicated. So here's an example. Instead of saying, please don't be late, after the second late arrival in 30 days, you lose booking priority. That's an example of a consequence. And if it's set the same for everybody, and it's not, because here's the thing too, everybody's watching. It's like having kids, and the kid says, I got punished when I only did it twice. They never got punished, and they've done it 6 times. Everybody sees that, and then they lose respect, and even that sense of like connection and being bought in, or because they think there's favoritism here, not for me. So whatever standards you set, You got to uphold that consistently across the board, no matter who it is. Number 3, boundaries only work if you enforce them. So this is where keeping each other accountable is so important. And if you're the very top, if you're the top leader, who holds you accountable? You have to encourage a culture of feedback. You have to ask for people to tell you areas that you could use improvement. And I feel like this has happened with me, and I appreciate it. Sometimes you're aware that you have habits and sometimes you're not. And once your eyes are open, I'm like, oh my gosh, I do that. One example, I've had a team member say, Katie, you tend to hype things up. You get so excited because you can picture it. You can picture the cool new thing that we're going to do. And then you talk about it, you make it seem like it's going to be real for us. But then when you actually go and think logically about it, you process it, then you come back and you're like, we're not going to move forward with that. So it feels like you overpromise and underdeliver. And that can be hard sometimes. And I'm like, whoa, you're absolutely right. This is part of controlling emotions. Sometimes we think being able to control your emotions is controlling negative things about yourself. But what if controlling emotions includes the positive? You get overly excited about stuff and then stuff never comes true. That could be an issue. So keeping an eye on that. Common salon and spa traps for when it comes to holding other people accountable is number 1, letting your top performers get away with things like breaking rules. Well, I know they're so busy, but they should still have to clean just like everybody else. By the way, I feel like our top performers are some of the most eager to help. To me, that's what makes even a top performer, somebody who goes above and beyond. And so, but you see this in other teams, right? Well, they're not expected to do all the things because they're awesome. They don't have to come to the team, or they don't have to join this education, or they don't have to help with towels. Well, that's not great. So maybe that could be an area that your boundaries are unhealthy and that you need to hold people accountable. Or making exceptions for nice clients. I don't want this client to have to pay a cancellation fee because they're just amazing and they tip me so well and they've referred me like 3 people. But you're like, well, okay, but they're habitually late and this is their second call with less than 24-hour notice in the last month or whatever it is, the last 3 months. So you got to have consistency across the board and be willing to hold them accountable. Follow through even when it's uncomfortable, you guys. Set the standards equally and detach yourself. This is the hardest, from the need to be liked. Everybody wants to be liked. Okay. And some people, they may not like how you are consistent as F across the board and upholding standards, but I promise you deep down, they respect you. And maybe what they don't like about you is a reflection of what they feel they don't bring to the table themselves. And you got to let that go. You got to let that go. And finally, number 4, boundaries actually improve relationships. If you set boundaries, it'll actually improve your relationships with client. Think of yourself, by the way. Think about going and getting services, whether it's chiropractic service, a massage, your Botox injections, or whatever it is that you value and you spend your own money on. How do you treat the people you're doing business with? How do you handle your appointments that you're booking? How do you approach gratuities if applicable, or the way you book out, the way you connect with your provider at whatever business you're getting services from? That is exactly what I want you to think about, because the level of respect and care, and you really are thankful for them, the level of gratitude in working with this person, that's the kind of relationship you want to establish internally with your team members from across the board. So boundaries push people away. That's a total myth. That's a lie. If you think setting boundaries is going to separate you from people and push them away, the only people that are going to stay distant from you when you have boundaries are people that wouldn't respect them. It's the people that have a level of respect who see, wow, this is valid and you deserve for this standard to be in place. We all do. Those are the people who want to have trusting, positive relationships. Healthy relationships. People know where they stand. When you have that healthy relationship established because of great, healthy boundaries, you both know where you stand in this relationship dynamic. Your respect increases and your communication improves. It improves because it takes great communication to talk through hard things, be consistent on standards, boundaries, policies, all the things. Like, you want collaboration, it takes a lot more communication. When you have unhealthy relationships, people will resist you. They'll test you. They will test to see how far they can go in not upholding boundaries. They might push back. They might, um, ultimately, you might lose clients if there's some toxicity between the relationship dynamic. Mm, and I'll give you an example. If you don't uphold something with the new client, and then they've been coming for a year, and then you all of a sudden uphold it, they're going to flip out worse than they would have if right up from the jump you had that boundary in place for them. And there's just going to become misalignment with your team members if you don't have a healthy relationship in place. If that dynamic is unhealthy, you will have misalignment among team members. So here's the key part of this. The right people will respect your boundaries. And you need to respect boundaries as well. And that takes open communication, feedback, hearing each other out, being as good of a listener as you are a communicator, which is part of communication, really. And the wrong people will expose themselves because of boundaries. So do not prevent yourself from putting boundaries in place, because ultimately it protects your time, your energy, and your culture. If you have really cool boundaries that you put in place in any dynamic of your salon, spa, I'd love to hear about it. Email me, tell me your story. I'd love to hear about it. And you can email info at joinmaya.com. joinmya.com. Thanks for joining me, you guys. Until next time, have an awesome day and stay strong.
Did you know over 60% of first-time clients do not return for a second visit? That is so painful, but it doesn't have to be that way. That's where Maya comes in. Maya is the ultimate marketing software for the beauty and wellness industry. We have a proprietary funnel utilizing special algorithms to help connect the right consumers with the right providers at your business. This means that Maya helps you get higher spending clients you love to work with who stay the long haul. If you want to increase your revenue, increase your client count, increase your average ticket, and increase your new client retention, then you need Maya. Go to joinmaya.com to set up your own personal virtual tour and see why over 500,000 consumers have trusted Maya and the businesses we work with to find their perfect beauty and wellness pro. We promise you will love Maya.